This straggly set of 4 sweet potatoes are survivors from last year's harvest. They are all the parent of these vines. And these are an army. An army of clones I'm raising to take over my garden, I hope. I'm going to show you my experiment that should give you a literally unlimited supply of new sweet potato plants, completely for free. It's a method that turns one potato into a sprawling patch that could yield hundreds of pounds of food. I am preparing some other of my seeds for the longest season possible too. But there's a serious catch. I'm in a race against the weather, and I'm honestly not sure if this ambitious experiment will end in triumph or a complete and total disaster. The success of this whole project really just hangs on whether I can beat the cold. Every year, it's the same story for gardeners in cooler climates like mine. You want to grow sweet potatoes. You know how delicious and productive they are, but you're stuck. You have to buy sweet potato slips, which are just little rooted cuttings from a garden centre or online, and they are not cheap. You might pay a few pounds for a small bundle of 3 or 4 sad-looking, wilted plants that have been totally stressed out from the shipping. You're starting on the back foot before you've even put a spade in the ground, and that cost adds up fast. If you want a real harvest, enough to store and eat through the winter, you don't need 3 plants, you need 20, or maybe more. Suddenly your little sweet potato project has turned into a major investment, all for something that might not even work if you get a late or an early frost. The varieties are often limited too. You get what they've got, not what you want or what grows best in your area. It can be a frustrating and expensive cycle. But what if we could break that cycle? What if you could take one single sweet potato, maybe one you grew yourself, or even just one from the grocery store, and turn it into an infinite supply of plants? That's the promise of what we're doing today. We're going to create our own supply chain. We're going to create dozens, don't think it'll be hundreds, but of vibrant, healthy, genetically identical plants from a single parent. We'll do it with nothing more than a bit of soil and a jar of water and a bit of patience. I'm hoping it's so easy you'll wonder why you ever paid for a sweet potato slip in your life. Stay for more seeds that people say shouldn't be sown now and find out what I do and why I do it. This whole project started with this few potatoes. This isn't any few sweet potatoes. This is Beauregard, a survivor from last year's small but mighty harvest. I grew them in a pot in the greenhouse, and after I tipped everything out last autumn, I chopped, roasted and froze my harvest of anything of a decent size, so most of them were eaten. I was quite surprised it worked, actually. But I held a few of the tiny ones back. Truthfully, it felt like a waste to get rid of them, and I couldn't be bothered to prepare them for eating. They were only the thickness of my finger or less, and just about as long. Just in case I could find a way to keep the line going. Storing sweet potatoes isn't like storing regular potatoes. They're a bit more sensitive. But this set of 4 I tucked away in a seed tray of old compost and held on. A few weeks ago I noticed it, a tiny purple-tinged sprout waking up, and that was the signal. That was the spark of life that would become the foundation for this entire army. My goal for the garden this year is ambitious. I want to dedicate a raised bed to sweet potatoes. I'm dreaming of digging up buckets full of them come autumn. But my garden is in a region that can be unforgiving. You never know what you're going to get. We have a shorter growing season. Our last frost date is all over the place, and even in early summer our nights can be cold enough to shock a tropical plant like a sweet potato. They crave heat, and our climate is often defined by its lack of it, although the last few summers have been shockingly warm, hence my experiment. It's an experiment against the elements. I've started this whole process indoors, creating a nursery of new plants, while the weather outside is still horrible. But soon these little guys will have to face the real world. The multiplication trick is only half the battle. The other half is survival, and that's where the suspense comes in. Will the sheer number of plants I'm creating be good enough to guarantee a harvest, even if I lose some to the cold? Or will I just be left with a bed of withered vines and a lesson learned the hard way? These tiny potatoes have given me incredible potential, but now it's up to me and the weather to see it through. Consider subscribing to see how this experiment goes later in the season, as this is where we're up to now. So what else can we do to try and stretch our season, to grow what may struggle if done at the wrong time? These following seeds are the seeds I sow early every year for various reasons, which I will explain. It is now the third week in January, and most growers leave tomato seeds until spring. But I have done this for years now, and I find we get a better, bigger harvest from doing these simple things. I sowed the seeds about 2 weeks ago in the usual simple way, but maintained a heat of over 20 degrees C in my propagator. As soon as they sprouted, I flicked on my grow lights to reduce the legginess. I do not fear a little legginess, as each hair on the stem has a potential to become a root. I will continue to pot up the plants, each time deeper, sometimes wrapping the stem around the pot, sometimes the root ball being upside down. The plant doesn't care. When the danger of frost has passed, I will have a well-established plant with a huge root ball. Most years the first flowers are out, and some years I've even had a small fruit, all when everyone else is just starting their seeds. It's a massive advantage. More fruit for longer. I use the fruit all year round, fresh eating, making pizza sauce, jarred or canned passata, that's just a tomato sauce, roasted whole for winter salads too, and then frozen. The coriander and the spinach are sown now or in July. They are cooler weather lovers. Everyone sows them in the spring and then wonders why they go to seed really quickly. Any decent temperature triggers their need to reproduce. So we have two choices. Sow in July, plant out late August to establish and overwinter under cloches, ready in the starting block to romp away as soon as winter subsides, giving you immense harvests that I use fresh but also preserved by freezing in blocks or dehydrating, enough to last the year. Cross fingers. I am giving them warmth to germinate. As soon as they do, I will remove it. I am doing this second set now to try and beat the heat later, to get a large enough plant to put out in spring to gain a bigger harvest. I cannot stop them from going to seed in the heat, and nor do I want to. It is the growth between that I need. You can save your own seed from both these plants, so I will let them bolt eventually and then harvest their seeds. I used the blocks of spinach in a spinach and chickpea curry, a TikTok pasta dish, marry me lentils dish, and we ran out too early this year in January, so I need to grow more. Coriander just goes in most things. This is a staple on my spices pantry shelf. Spring onions that I forgot to do last July and put in the garden to overwinter. Whoops! I'm trying to claw back some time by sowing them now, which will be planted out as a plug as soon as the soil warms slightly. These can be used in place of normal onions in dishes, used in salads, and when I need to clear them, I wash, chop and freeze them to chuck in soups and all other recipes. Pepper plants are like tomatoes and sweet potatoes. They love warm weather, and cold kills them. In warmer countries they can be a perennial, but here they're an annual. I haven't found a way of overwintering them that works yet, but maybe this year. So we tried to get a jump in on the year to extend the growing season. Sowing them now in a heated propagator gives us the chance of getting up to 2 flushes of peppers, when you can be lucky to get 1 harvest of peppers here. The idea of now is to get a big strong plant ready for the greenhouse when temperatures allow. Flowers will appear earlier. Fruit that takes a while to grow gets the chance, and a second flush of flowers leads to more fruit. This early sowing moves the second flowering into late summer rather than autumn, when the blooms will drop off. as it's too cold. If you get a massive crop, they are easy to wash, chop and freeze. The seed potatoes are at different stages at the moment. As soon as I see the sprouts on them in our cool garage, they need to come inside, warm up and be taken out of the bag and get some light. They need this because they are going to grow the sprouts anyway, whatever we do. But in the garage, in the cold and the dark, you would just get long, white, delicate sprouts growing through the bag. Later, that is a real problem. The energy from the seed has gone into the sprouts and they will get snapped off because they're stuck into the bag and are very delicate. And you don't want all that energy being lost. Brought into the warm and the light, we will get short green or purple sprouts, strong and sturdy and ready to plant in spring, that are less likely to come off. I'm using up my potatoes as wedges at the moment. I just wash, cut them into wedges, microwave on a plate for 3 minutes and then cook in the oven or air fryer with whatever else you're having for dinner with them for about 30 minutes. Yum! These are my tried and tested seed sowing that I do every year and I would not do without. They help keep our food bills lower and feed my family. I also find so much joy in seed sowing and I love the challenge of an experiment. So there you have it. We started off with our leftover sweet potatoes from last year's harvest. We let it sprout and grow into a mother plant, and from that we watched the magic happen. Then we potted up our new free plants, and we will plant them with hope of getting the biggest possible harvest. Now this army of clones is getting strong, just waiting for the ground outside to warm up. We have a solid plan to give them the best possible chance of survival in our tricky climate. This simple technique has taken the potential of one potato and multiplied it, without spending a penny. Yay! We sowed our tried and tested seeds that promise us another good start. So, the next step is to get them into the ground and see if it all pays off. We will be celebrating a massive harvest of deliciousness this autumn. Or will the cold weather get the last laugh? You'll have to stick around to find out. I'm going to be documenting the entire journey from planting out to the final harvest, so if you want to follow along and see the results, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hitting the notification bell means you won't miss the update. We'll also share how we use these crops to the best, and hopefully with little waste. This is an adventure, and I'm sure there'll be wins and losses along the way. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever tried to grow sweet potatoes in a colder climate? What are your best tips? Do you use fleece, plastic mulch, or do you have another trick up your sleeve? Sharing our knowledge is how we all become better gardeners. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.